Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. So today we are breaking down an absolutely massive question facing Missouri voters on the August 2026 ballot. We're talking about Amendment 4. And look, we're going to skip the spin, skip the politics, and just look at the exact text and the data you need to understand exactly what's on the table.
I want you to think about something for just a second. How hard should it be to change a state's constitution, right? It's a profound structural question. And that exact tension, that push and pull, is the absolute heart of this upcoming vote.
Here is a quick roadmap of what we're covering today. First, we'll meet Missouri Amendment 4, then look at foreign spending and fraud, followed by the district approval requirement. After that, we'll look at a case study of District 7, weigh supporters versus opponents, and finally, go over what your vote means.
All right, Section 1. Meet Missouri Amendment 4 and the three provisions on the August 2026 ballot.
Okay, let's dive into this. Amendment 4 is what's called a legislatively referred constitutional amendment, which basically just means lawmakers put it on the ballot for you, the citizens, to decide on. It effectively bundles three main prongs into one package. It requires voter approval in every congressional district, it explicitly bans foreign spending, and it penalizes petition fraud. Now, to really understand the impact here, we kind of have to unpack these separately.
Moving on to Section 2. Foreign spending and fraud, and moving those penalties into the Constitution.
Now, here's what's actually pretty fascinating. Missouri state law already bans foreign money in elections. So you might be wondering, why is this even here? Well, Amendment 4 takes the exact definition of a foreign adversary, meaning entities flagged by the U.S. Secretary of State, and takes that ban and embeds it permanently right into the state constitution.
And this is, quite literally, a massive legal upgrade. Right now, foreign spending bans and petition fraud are just state statutes. Petition fraud, for example, is a Class A misdemeanor, but this amendment elevates those rules entirely. It puts them in the Constitution and gives the state attorney general exclusive power to prosecute them. So suddenly, a violation could trigger up to a year in jail, a $1,000 fine, and making offenders repay triple the illegal contributions. It's a huge shift in severity.
Section 3. The district approval requirement, or changing the math of democracy. So currently, the math for passing an amendment is pretty simple. You need 50% plus one vote across the entire state, and boom, it passes. But the proposed rule changes the game entirely. It requires that same statewide majority plus a majority in all 8 individual congressional districts. And here is a really crucial caveat. This strict new math applies only to citizen-driven petitions. It does not apply to amendments suggested by the state legislator.
Which actually brings us to the single most important number in this whole debate. Number 1. Under these proposed rules, a single congressional district out of 8 could effectively veto an entire amendment. Think about that. An initiative could win 7 districts, win the popular vote across the state by an absolute landslide, and still completely fail.
Let's ground this in reality with Section 4, Case Study, District 7, where theory meets reality.
We really don't have to guess how this would play out because we can just look at recent history in Missouri's 7th Congressional District. Let's look at major recent ballot measures: Medicaid expansion, marijuana legalization, sports wagering, and the right to abortion. Every single one of these passed with a statewide majority, but in District 7, they all fell short, scoring somewhere between 39 and 45%. Meaning, if Amendment 4 had been the law of the land back then, every single one of those recently passed amendments would have failed. Period.
Section 5. Supporters versus opponents. The great debate.
Let's look at the arguments impartially, starting with the supporters. State Representative Ed Lewis, who actually sponsored the amendment, poses a pretty fundamental question. He asks, do we want something that a broad consensus of all Missourians could support change in the Constitution? And that's what I want. Supporters essentially argue the Constitution just shouldn't be easily altered by a slim majority, especially if those votes are heavily concentrated in a few highly populated urban centers. They are looking for guaranteed, border-to-border geographic consensus.
On the flip side, we have opponents like State Representative Kathy Steinhoff, who argue this creates a totally unfair bottleneck. She warns that it will leave opponents to focus all of their time, all of their energy, all of their money in just one district. They argue that giving a single district veto power essentially silences the statewide majority, making it virtually impossible for grassroots organizers to ever pass a citizen initiative.
And you know, whenever the stakes are this high, the war chests absolutely open up. Early momentum shows the opposition campaign raising about $200,000, which is largely fueled by the Missouri Association of Realtors. Meanwhile, the support campaign is sitting at just over $100,000, backed mostly by Trails West, Inc.
Both sides are clearly gearing up for a really expensive fight over how Missouri governs itself.
Finally, Section 6, what your vote means and the final choice.
So, let's bring it all together. Here's exactly what you are deciding on when you get to the ballot box. A yes vote means you want to require 8 separate district majorities on top of a statewide majority for citizen initiatives. And it means you want those foreign spending bans and fraud penalties permanently carved into the Constitution. A no vote maintains the status quo. It keeps the simple statewide majority rule to amend the Constitution, and it leaves those spending and fraud rules right where they are in state law.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. Where exactly do you draw the line between requiring broad consensus and honoring simple majority rule? It's the core philosophical question driving this entire debate. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Definitely study your ballot, consider the structural math, and make your voice heard at the polls. Until next time, keep learning.